Graphic violence has always been a controversial topic in video games. It has always been that way between gamers and non-gamers, especially amongst parents. But when it comes to JRPGs, well, I rarely see that in video games like that. In most JRPGs that I've ever played, let's say about 80 or 90%, I've rarely seen anything remotely graphically violent in those. But of course, there are some exceptions, and we are just about to meet some of them. As usual, this is my personal opinion, and I'm only including North American releases. So let's begin. Number 10. Koudelka. Koudelka is one of those controversial games in the history of RPGs, not only for mixing survival horror elements with the genre, but also for being the prequel to the popular Shadow Hearts series. Another thing that stands out, but only for those who have actually played it, it's the mixed criticism it has. Whether it's a good or a bad game is entirely subjective, but the thing is that Koudelka does have a lot of flaws, like being too dark, literally speaking, and slow in combat even though being a strategy RPG. However, this is all beside the point. Koudelka is the game that opens our top because some of its horror elements do stand out, but most of them involve cutscenes that are major spoilers, which is why I'm not showing you any, in case you want to go and play it. Some of those scenes can be pretty grotesque and disturbing, but there's just a few, which is why this game stays on number 10. Number 9. Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga. I've only played the first one, so that's the one I'm gonna talk about. I don't remember this game being exactly violent, despite some bloody scenes here and there, but if I had to choose one of the most disturbing games from the entire Megami Tensei franchise, it just had to be this. Sure, there are games like Devil Summoner or Devil Survivor, and they do show some little graphic violence every once in a while, but in my opinion, none of them beat the infamous Digital Devil Saga. Not only does it have some graphic outbursts here and there, but also themes that involve psychological violence and obnoxious physical transformations that could very well disturb much younger audiences. These transformations can be a little gorish sometimes, but nothing that can truly stand out like the following game that I'm about to talk about. That one at least has something that sure shocked a lot of people, and that is Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. I actually haven't played this game. I only played the original Shin Megami Tensei 4 and it is a little violent, yes, but Apocalypse, I'm told it's way more. Guess I'll find out one day. But there's one thing that I can say for sure, and it's that it does have one of the most controversial openings and or trailers ever in the history of gaming. Here's the famous scene where this girl gets brutally cut in half, blood and intestines fly out for a couple of seconds, and the main character gets, well, the same reaction we all probably had when we first saw this. I mean, a Nintendo game for a portable console showing this? I don't think I need to explain more. Number 7. Bandol Hearts 1 and 2. You did notice the mature rating on the covers, right? That's rare in JRPGs, actually. We see them often in the Shin Megami Tensei or the Souls franchise, but in a random, obscure hidden gem for the PS1? Well, that's unusual. And trust me, and I mean it, it's not just the blood sprouting everywhere that you see every time a character or an enemy getting annihilated. It's the tragic, disturbing adult atmosphere you feel every now and then within the story. I haven't played the third Bandol Hearts, which is Flames of Judgment, but I'm told it is equally bloody. The first two Bandol Hearts are indeed a little graphically violent and stand out precisely because of that. Bandol Hearts 2 actually has also one of the most violent intros in the history of JRPGs. Just seeing all these sprites, with graphics from over 20 years ago soaked in blood, and characters in these kinds of graphic situations on a strategy RPG, just make you feel sad and disturbed at the same time. Number 6. Operation Darkness. In this game, I'm combining both graphic violence and the topic itself. It's a hidden gem for the Xbox 360, a strategy RPG that takes place during the Second World War, specifically on the Nazi era, with Adolf Hitler actually being the main protagonist here. They didn't give a damn about all the classic censorship we all know pretty well, and endorsed us with this joke of a game about Hitler. I say joke because, believe it or not, the game doesn't take itself seriously at times. Why? Well, because it involves zombies and vampires. Yup. Hitler is controlling these underworldly creatures during the war. So, like I said at the beginning, it's useless to say this game is really violent just because of the blood, without mentioning actually the World War II topic. However, when it does get serious, it can become a little disturbing, but mostly awkward. Number 5. Parasite Eve 1 and 2. Koudelka may have been controversial because it mixed survival horror with RPG, but let's not forget who did it first on a console system. On March 29, 1998, Parasite Eve came out and competed against Resident Evil in terms of graphic violence. This one, however, was a turn-based role-playing game with a very unique battle system. And this scene became legendary. We've all seen this rat going into one of the most grotesque and violent transformations in the history of video games. Yikes. Now, the 3 Parasite Eve games are equally violent, especially since they're horror games to the core, but perhaps the PSP version might be even more, considering it was now more of a shooter than an RPG. I have barely played these games, so I can't exactly talk about it, but Parasite Eve 2 is one that I also played, and it also included one legendary scene near the beginning with a woman transforming into a monster. Although not as grotesque as the famous rat one, but really disturbing nonetheless. In any case, both games are graphically violent, and they just deserved to be on this list. Number 4. Drakengard, Drakengard 2, and Drakengard 3. The Drakengard franchise has an entire and controversial history of being violent, especially since its battle system includes some heavy hack and slash elements, turning them all into action RPGs. The first Drakengard was pretty well known for executing these bloodlust situations intentionally, but however, the most popular example was Drakengard 3, in which things got beyond a simple exaggeration. It's not only the graphic violence presented in this game, that in my opinion it's nowhere near as graphic as in games like God of War or Dante's Inferno, when it comes to hack and slash games. No, it's also the disturbing obscure topics the 3 games have in terms of psychological behavior. In the third game, which is allegedly the prequel to the franchise, the main character talks sometimes about how she actually enjoys killing everything in sight, and the more we journey with her, we learn about the reasons behind her genocidal madness. So yep, pretty graphic games, the third one in particular. Number 3 goes to Nier and Nier Automata. We all know already that Nier started as a spin-off of the Drakengard series, but it has now become a series of its own, especially thanks to the second one's huge success. Nier, however, wins the third spot over Drakengard mainly because of its psychological twists every now and then, especially near the ending. But the fact remains that it is also a very graphically violent action RPG that depicts bloodlust everywhere we go. Although not exactly intentional as in the Drakengard games, here the characters are fighting for survival or several other morally acceptable purposes. Blood and violence, however, are much too present in both games. I'm not sure if the animal killings could have hurt the nowadays overly sensitive community, but I did feel kind of awkward while attacking them. In Automata, this was no exception either. Killing animals, fortunately, wasn't as graphically violent as in tons of other video games out there, but just seeing how many damn hits it took to end their lives was a little over the limit. Number 2, Pandoras Tower. Oh man, wanna talk about grotesque here? Without spoiling anything, since this is what the main plot is about, Pandoras Tower is an action RPG also with blood and violence, in which you have to take the hearts of the creatures to I'll explain later. The thing is that if you played this game before, you might be wondering how in the hell did it beat Nier and Drakengard over graphically violent content, but the thing is that there's something that's beyond disturbing about the characters that you won't be able to digest as easily as you did with the previous titles on this list. I mean, this could very well be number 1 just because of one horrendous reason. This. You have to feed the heart to this girl who's little by little transforming into some kind of nightmare abomination that quickly reminds us all of all those gore animes out there that involve these kinds of topics. I mean, the scenes are not as graphic as some others, but damn are they hard to watch. It's just very disturbing watching this much human degradation metaphor in a game that came out for Nintendo! So yes, the controversy here is this, the teen rating on the cover. What were they thinking? Number 1, Bloodborne. Let us keep the typical never-ending argument about Bloodborne being an RPG or not, or Japanese RPG or whatever. The absolute truth here is that this game is one of the most violent video games ever made for the current console generation. To me, it is the king of them all because the graphics are naturally superior to every single other game in this top. Yes, it's one of the hardest out there, and in my opinion, it's harder than Dark Souls, but that's beside the point. Graphic violence in this game is simply brutal. There's the opening cinematic where we can clearly see another one of those grotesque and disturbing scenes showing us how the entire game is actually going to be. So it's a legendary game with some gore here and there and brutal violence everywhere you go. So I will say it is undoubtedly the most violent JRPG I have ever played in my life. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget that I'm always interested in your opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also share what are the most graphically violent games you've ever played, especially in the JRPG genre, so we can discuss this as usual. So once again, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time.